ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Never Too Late podcast. This is Tony again, as always, and I've got an awesome guest with Miss Aeoliana de Jesus Elliott. How's it going?
Hey, Anthony, how are you?
Pretty good. So I always like to start these things with just letting people know who you are and what you do.
Sure. So like you said, my name is Aeoliana, and I am from Tampa, Florida, originally from Puerto Rico, and I am a podcast strategist. Basically, what I do is I help podcasters launch and manage their podcasts by using mindset and heart-centered strategies to get their podcasts up and running and managed so they avoid the burnout. And that's basically what I do.
Awesome. Okay. So when you say mindset and heart-centered strategies, you're talking about like a lot of like alignment, being sure you're true to your mission, that type of thing?
Yeah. So a lot of that, making sure that you have the right goals, you understand what your definition of success is for your podcast, making sure you don't try to do too many things at once, making sure that you're balancing home life and the podcast and everything works out for you. Otherwise, with content, I'm sure you're aware if you don't keep those things in check, it can lead to a lot of burnout and, you no longer love the thing that you were doing. So most podcasts are passion projects. And when those things aren't set up properly, it can lead to you just not wanting to do it anymore.
Yeah, for sure. We can't all be Gary Vee doing, 30 things a day all the time, right?
That's true. That's true. We also don't have that payroll.
Yeah, true that. Right? Most of us don't yet. Well, no, that's awesome that you do that and help people get that stuff going. I know, there's 3 million or so podcasts in the world at any given moment.
Yeah, and actually, there's a lot of podcasts that come out every week, every month, and out of all of those that launch, only about a third stay active after about 9 or 10 episodes. So, it's when I read that number, and I think that was a stat from 2021. So I'd have to check back in to see what the number is now, but I'm sure now it's probably even lower than that. With people going back to work and, the economy and all that stuff, I'm sure, people want to do it. It's in their heart to do it, but, the burnout is real. Content burnout is real. So.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to, keep up with the demand necessary to blow up, let people think that they should be able to, right?
Right. Plus, also, if you don't have the right idea, like you could think that blowing up is going to be what leads to your success, when in reality it could just be talking to a few select group of people that are really on point with what you're talking about. And so I think that aspect of it, where people don't really know what success is, they don't know what a successful podcast is, because they're looking at like the podcasts that are for celebrities and people that went viral and things like that, where their groups are huge because they were huge to begin with. Whereas for a regular person just diving into the podcasting world, they're not they don't have that following. So they need to make sure that they know what success is to them. I know a lot of podcasters, when they start out, they just want to teach something, or they want to change someone's life, just one person. If they reach one person, that to them is success. So just knowing what your success parameters are specifically for your podcast is super important.
Oh, definitely. I think it goes beyond podcasts too, like just business or life in general, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, your version of success is probably a lot different than what I define my success as, right? And then to the next person too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it goes, in family and relationships and business and life in general. Everybody's definition of success is specific to that person. So I think what gets missed a lot is defining what that success is. And then once you know that, you can build from there.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's something I talked to my partner, my business partner, my girlfriend, and a lot of other people as well. I was like, okay, what are we defining success as? Is it become a billionaire? not for us, it's not, right? But
Right.
is it secure a future for ourselves and my kids and that kind of thing? Yeah,
Right.
that's what it is. And that can look a lot different for everybody too. So
Yeah.
that's awesome that you focus on that as part of the strategy of building the podcast, which if you do it correctly, even on a small scale, is a business. So it follows that
Right.
too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what got you into doing this? I know it was a few years ago you started it, but
Yeah. So I've always loved podcasts. I initially started with true crime podcasts. I'm a true crime junkie. I love all things true crime.
right.
And in probably about 2017, 2018, I started realizing the power of podcasts for learning. So not just for entertainment, but for learning how to do things. Like, you know how when something breaks, you automatically go to YouTube to try to figure out how to fix it. I know my husband's like that. He's always looking at YouTube. So for me, podcasts became that. So if I needed, I did some VA work. And so I jumped in, listened to some podcasts about how to do that. When I decided to do podcast management, which was what I was initially doing before I changed to strategy, I was listening to podcasts about, how to manage a podcast, how to get all that done. And then in about 2022, I believe, I jumped into mindset and like self-discovery and those types of podcasts, like positive mindset and things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, podcasting has really changed the way I look at things, changed the way that I learn, the way I've grown, what I teach my son. I take the things that I learn from the different podcasts and I'm constantly like telling my husband, hey, try this or listen to this or check this out. So it's become a really great medium to get information out there and do it in a way that's digestible and fun for people as well, because it's almost like you're part of a conversation, which is what I
Yeah.
enjoy about it.
Yeah, those are the kind of podcasts that I enjoy to listen to the most, are the ones where it feels like you're in the room with somebody. And that
Right.
can be just someone talking to a camera,
Right.
one-on-one, or it can be a group of people like, Logan and Jake Paul, they do like this big roundtable thing for a lot of them, You feel like you're in the room with these people doing this stuff,
Right.
And the way that human minds are kind of wired is to digest information in a group setting like that, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true. I think after COVID, that was something that a lot of people didn't think about before COVID. Like, you took that community aspect for granted. And then when we didn't have it anymore, it was something that people were looking for. And I think podcast was something that allowed people to get back into that community feel, because you can have 10 people listening to the exact same podcast and get 10 different things when the conversation wasn't any different for any of them. It was the same conversation, but everybody's getting something different out of it because they're listening from their own perspectives, where they come from, what they've learned, what they've gone through. So I think that's a great way not only to build community, but also to, just foster that togetherness where, some people might not be out and about still, but through podcasting, you're able to meet people, you're able to learn from people, you're able to do things that, I mean, like, you're in North Dakota, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in Florida. If it weren't for podcasting, you and I probably would never have met.
Oh, 100%. Right. Yeah. That group that we're both a part of that we connected through
Right.
was because of our interest in podcasting and doing this whole thing. Right. So,
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely been a huge impact in my life, like specifically my life for the last, I don't know, pretty much since COVID, I guess, because it got to the point where we weren't like completely shut down as much as the rest of, like, some places the rest of the country were here. But there was a point where we're in North Dakota anyway, so we're all kind of a little more isolated than a lot of people tend to be around the country. It's a big space and not a lot of people. So, being able to get an outside perspective of the world on any topic is greatly enhanced by podcasting. You know, before that it was just YouTube, and then before that it was just social media stuff, and then before that just books, right?
Yeah.
And now we have all this together at our fingertips, and it's really in some good and some bad ways, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
kind of changed how people, access the world.
Right.
It's been amazing.
I think for me, the negative side of it is, people already had that microwave mentality of instant gratification.
Yeah.
And I think with podcasting and with YouTube and social media and everything like that, that's been enhanced even more. But I think that's one thing that I'm okay with, that negative, because of all the positives that have occurred as a result of, podcasting and all, being a part of that community. So I'm okay with that's a trade-off. That's a good trade-off. I don't mind.
Yeah, and there's with anything in life, there's a trade-off, good and bad,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
I would agree with you in general. I think the internet in general and podcasting specifically, there's definitely a lot more good out of it than there is negative, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always some, but
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's been the short journey that I've been on with my podcast so far has been really awesome. I get to meet really cool people like you, and
Thank you.
get more perspective that way, right? Which at the end of the day is really like what I'm in this for, is to get people's perspectives for myself, of course, we're having a conversation, and then anyone that might be listening to what we're doing, they can get a perspective on this from you, or a different topic from somebody else, and just kind of, you can finally see that you're not alone in some of your thoughts, right?
Right.
You're not crazy,
Right.
which is awesome. So
yeah. And going along that same train of thought, not only do you not feel alone, but you realize that we're more alike than we are different.
Yes.
So in so many things where, people are trying to divide, and, the things happening in the world and everything, listening to podcasts, you may not know the person, but you can hear something in them that you can relate to. And so it teaches us that we're a lot more alike than we are different. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think if more people focused on how more alike we are than we are different, I think things would be a lot better, because we'd be working towards, how can I help you? How can I serve you? What can I do for you? Instead of, what can you do for me?
Yeah, for sure. No, and I forget where I heard it or who said it or wherever it came from, but travel cures ignorance, right? Travel cures
I've never heard that.
And I don't remember where I heard it from either. It was something I heard a long time ago. It just kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
One of my goals in my life is to visit 100 or more countries in my life, right?
Wow, that's a great goal.
And it's going to be relatively pretty easy. There's 43 in Europe, so that's easy, right?
Yeah.
Then the rest is just kind of going.
You're almost halfway there, just going to Europe.
Right. But as it sits right now, I've been to Canada, but I've never left the US, right? Yet. I mean, I will. But I've been able to experience, and I think all of us have been able to experience a lot more of the world because of platforms like podcasts and that kind of thing. Because we're hearing stories from everywhere, from the horse's mouth, not just, he said, she said kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great sentiment. I had never thought about it that way, but it's true. If you put yourself in someone else's shoes and you learn through that experience, your perspective will change based on, like I said before, based on where you came from and your experiences. Who we are is based on our experiences and the people that surround us. So the more you expose yourself to different people, different cultures, different experiences, the more you yourself will grow and the better person you'll become. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I only really thought of like podcasting that way when you were talking about bringing people together, right? Like it never really clicked until right now. So even just this conversation, boom, right? That's a really cool side effect of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
I have met people in my North Dakota life in very small counties, rural counties in the state that have only left that county like twice in their life, and they're in their 80s, and it never fails when I think about it. The people that are, they never leave, right? those tend to be I'm not going to say hateful, but like some of the very like a little bit more closed-minded, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They know their 100 square miles. That's it, right?
right.
Or wherever they're at, which is that just blows my mind that you can even live that way. But to each their own, I suppose. So
Yeah, I think with every generation tends to want to go farther and learn more.
yeah, I would agree with that. It seems like that's the case, right? And it kind of like if you look through history, kind of like ebbs and flows. There's peaks and valleys.
Right.
For various reasons on that. But I think right now in the generation and the world that we're living in today, there's a much more prevalent feeling of exploration.
Right.
People want to know what other people are feeling and thinking and doing. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that I know in my case, like I like traveling, but I'm okay if I don't travel. But my son's 11 and he's already like, I'm going to go to school in Michigan because he likes hockey. So he's like, I'm going to go to Michigan State, and I'm going to do that. And I'm like, well, can't you just stay in Florida? Like, do we have to go to Michigan? Like, but he's already like, yeah, that's where I want to go. That's what I want to do. And, his dream is to play in the NHL. So he's like, whatever team I'm on, you're going to have to travel with me and,
Right.
go to all the games and stuff. So already in his mind, he's traveling. Like he's not staying in one place. He's not staying put. So, yeah.
Well, if he wants to get into hockey and play in the NHL, he's got to go to UND, not Michigan. That's where you got to be.
One of his coaches went to school at Michigan. So that's why that's why he's like, I'll go to Michigan. But he's changed from Michigan, LSU, Notre Dame. There was one last summer or in April, they had the Frozen Four here in Florida, and it was Minnesota and Quinnipiac. And he was like, I'll go to either one of those. And I'm like, those are all both really cold. I don't know if I can. Those are both really cold.
Why they're so good at hockey, though?
Right. No, I'm Puerto Rico. I'm Caribbean, warm blood. I'm like, no, that's too cold. But yeah, I mean, he's set. He knows that's what he's going to do, and staying put isn't going to cut it. He knows he's going somewhere.
Yeah, that's awesome. He's 11. He's got time to figure it out. So
yeah. Hopefully, yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
And then as everything grows with everything you're doing, you can go and start the first Puerto Rican hockey league. And
that'd be great. But I think with the heat, I don't know if that'll work.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll stick to like baseball players and basketball players and call it a day.
Yeah.
And just
You got baseball pretty well covered, so yeah, that's good.
Right. Yeah, we do pretty well in baseball, so I think we're okay. I think hockey can stay for like, although here in South Florida, having hockey here is a pretty big deal. So if we can do it here, who knows?
Who knows?
Right. Yeah. Who knows?
No, that's awesome. We could sit and talk for days about cold weather sports. I grew up here in North Dakota, so I'm well aware of all that stuff. But I'm looking to get out of this cold winter wasteland up here. I want to move further south eventually. So, well, no, that's awesome. That it sounds like you raised a good kid there, right? Like he's got that outward view of I can't just stay here forever.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Sounds like you've done a good job.
Thank you. I try. We try. That's all we can do. That's right.
So in the podcast strategist world, I mean, I've heard that term before, even before talking to you like once, I think, but I've been thinking about it a lot more since you and I had our first conversation before this about like how many of you are out there? Like, is this a big industry? Is it pretty cottage type of thing, or?
I think it's pretty small. I think a lot of podcast managers, some of them, if they're not really techie and not really into that side of it, will pivot into coaching and strategy. I know of a couple of podcast strategists that I follow on like Instagram and stuff like that. But like you said, it's a pretty small group. The people I talk to are usually like, what is that? What do you do? Like, what you know, and then when I explain it, they're like, okay, that makes perfect sense. That name makes perfect sense. Initially, when I pivoted into the role, I was very hesitant about calling myself like a coach or, you know, that kind of thing. And I had a client of mine that I helped out, and she told me, she goes, you should pivot into podcast strategy. Like, that's what you're doing. That's what you're helping with. You should just call it, you're a podcast strategist. And I was like, okay, I guess so. Like, as long as I don't have to call myself a coach and I can, you know, then that's fine. And so the name just kind of stuck. And then I realized that there was a few more people that were doing the same thing. So I think it's a pretty closed group, from my experience, which makes it fun because we're able to kind of blaze our own trail, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. You know, you're in a, you know, they say the riches are in the niches, right? And you're in a pretty
Right.
good niche there. And if
Yeah,
there's only a few of you, or a dozen, or however many there are,
right,
you know, that makes that actually a little bit better for the whole group, right?
right.
Because you might, I'm sure you come across clients or potential clients that are like, yeah, this really isn't a good fit for like what you're doing, but you know someone that might be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because a lot of people want the strategy more tech based or more specific based, whereas mine is more like mindset and making sure all that is aligned together with everything else you're doing. So, you know, you may want someone who's very like, this is the tech you should be using. This is the equipment, the editing stuff. This is how you should do XYZ, you know, and I'm not like that. I'll give you that. I can talk about that, but that's not where my focus is. So if you're that tech kind of person, I may not be the right person for you, but I can refer you to someone who is. And actually, my mentor, they're very tech based. So if I ever have clients that want more of that, you know, bigger podcast, like more information, more help, then I'll send them to her.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. You know, I think that's a good way to do it, right? You know, if you, I found that in just like in sales specifically, I got a sales background. So I found that in sales, I don't have to have all the answers, but I better know where to look to find them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, Tony here. Just a quick word from our ad partners, and we'll get right back to the great content you came here for. Looking to start your own podcast to get your message to the world? Top Shelf Virtual Services can get you from idea to launch in 8 weeks. Sign up for the newsletter and get a free 45-minute consultation call to get you moving. Find everything you need at the link in the description.
If you're experiencing burnout, whether you've been losing yourself at work or losing yourself in a relationship, our Unlock Your It Factor program is designed for you. You will learn simple, applicable tools to get reconnected and authentically aligned so you can achieve greater success in life. Check it out.
That's awesome that you've got that support network and that mentor like that.
Yeah.
It goes a long way in building things.
Yeah, and I think that goes even outside of podcasting. Like, I may not know everything, but I sure can find out. Like, I may not be able to give you the answer right away, but give me a day or two and I can figure it out. Or I can tell you where to go to figure it out.
Yep. And you're going to learn a whole bunch in the process of doing that too.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in this world, as a podcast strategist, when you look at, and I'm sure you do like a lot of analyzing, like, hey, you know, there's this thing that maybe you weren't involved in, but you can see what they're doing, not doing, what they could do better, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
Kind of a case study from an outside perspective almost. Research, that's what I was looking for. There you go. So in the big successful ones that you see and do that research on, or even clients that you see and help, you know, get to their level of success they're looking for, what would you say are like the top one or two, maybe three things that would be like the the main things that led them to that success?
So one of the biggest things is making sure they have goals set up. And then the second thing was, like we were talking at the beginning, getting that definition of what success is to you. So whether that success means number of listeners, if you are a coach or own a business and you're selling products through your podcast, how many sales you got, how many students you signed up, whatever that definition of success is, having that outlined and knowing what that is huge, because once you know those two things, your content, your marketing, how you're promoting, all of those things fall into place when you know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, have that why, and then have
Right.
the path to get where you're going.
Right.
And it's amazing, not just like the podcast stuff here, but it's amazing how many people I talk to in life about, how to succeed in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just conversations with your buddy or whatever, right? Where that ends up being the main theme is you've got to know why you're doing what you're doing. You've got to have a goal and a path to achieve that goal, or many goals along there.
Yeah.
And you got to be adaptable because things change.
Absolutely.
Every day, right? And then consistency is the other thing that I was going to ask you about. Like, even if you're saying you're going to do once a month podcast, right? Which I know there's plenty out there that do that, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of people that do that. Yeah.
How easy is it though for people, just people in general, like if you're going to generalize, quote unquote, people that they get to the point it's time to record the next one, and it's just like, I'm not gonna, right? You got to stay consistent, right?
Right.
And then that gets to be even more difficult the more volume you do, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that's one of the questions I ask my clients when we start is, what is your goal to how many times are you going to record? Like you want to do 2-3 a week. Does your schedule allow for you to, do you understand what it means to record 3 episodes, to have 3 episodes out 3 times a week? Do you understand what that is?
Yeah, no, this is not something that you can on any schedule. If you're going to do it, like podcast specifically, it's not an easy thing to go full time with, because you're not going to see revenue out of it for probably a while unless you're
absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of people don't think about that. They assume they're like, I'm going to do a podcast and it's going to go viral and I'm going to make tons of money, but you don't monetize it. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. Nobody knows where you are. Nobody, you're not going to make money that way. So it's just the goals, the success, the strategies, all of that falls into place so that you're able to do those things. And the consistency is another thing that, I teach my clients. You want to be consistent, then set a plan where, okay, I'm going to record, let's say 3 times a week. That means that I have to batch record 3 episodes when I record my episodes the beginning of the week. That way I have all 3 of them done. And that works if you're doing pre-recorded, but like you and I are doing live. So, that's not going to work for that. So maybe you change your plan and you do maybe 1 live and 2 pre-recorded. So it just depends on, what you want to do, what your goals are. And like, if you don't have that set up, then you're not going to know. And you're going to end up burning out and overwhelming yourself because you didn't plan ahead of time. So it's a lot of planning.
It is, yeah. So this podcast that you're on right now, what I do is we post 4 times a week. We do Monday, just me talking. Lately, it's been just kind of a ramble, basically.
Rambles are good.
They fill time, and if you can get coherent thoughts out, it's pretty good content, right? So, yeah, that's what goes up on Mondays. That's usually about a half hour, 45 minutes that goes to. And then when I do that, I also record 2 5 to 15-minute things that are about like a specific product or service that we offer. And that goes up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then these here go up on Fridays. And I've got kind of a backlog of some things now where I can kind of space things out, which was not easy to do either. You know, you got to
Right.
take time to build that backlog, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that was the hardest part of this, though, was getting that backlog built and all that. And now I can just schedule and do the next thing that's going to follow right after, like dominoes, right?
Right.
And then repurposing the stuff, that's my next challenge, right? How do I repurpose the stuff into short form, all that stuff? I found some tools that I'm going to kind of experiment with and see how that works. But do you get any of that as far as?
Yeah. So I've used a script
Okay.
to cut things. I've used Headliner to make the audiograms. But yeah, I mean, repurposing content is great because if you, like you said, you have a lot of backlog. Let's say you want to take a vacation and you don't want to record for 2 weeks. You can look at your podcast analytics, see what episodes did well, and just re-release them with a little, tagline at the beginning saying, hey guys, this episode, did really well. Here are my thoughts on it, from now versus what my thoughts were then. Enjoy it. And that's it. Or you can post things to YouTube. You can just take a still shot of, your podcast cover art or whatever you want, put it in there on YouTube and have the audio running. You can post the audio of, certain parts of a talk or an interview you had on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. You can turn the transcript of your podcast into a blog or, a newsletter or, something you send to your clients. So you can do so many things repurposing with one episode of your podcast that, there's so much content in there with just you doing one thing.
Yeah, it's really crazy how much you can get out of this 45-minute to an hour long conversation. Like,
right.
It's insane how much you can get out of that.
Yeah.
And what really, like, for me, what made that switch in my mind about like, hey, this, I'm not going to say it's easy, right? But it's not as difficult as it's maybe made out to be, right?
Right.
Like anything on the internet, everything's the hardest thing in the world unless you hire this person, right?
Right. Yeah. No, it's not.
Which is just good marketing. But
right.
So when I was listening to, I want to say it was Ryan Pineda's podcast, but I could be wrong. Maybe he had a guest on it or something like that. But they were talking about repurposing content, and like and it just kind of clicked. Like, hey, you can do an hour-long conversation like this, and then split it out into whatever you split it out into.
Right.
And then I'm planning on being pretty much non-existent for 1 month next summer. No one's gonna know I'm gone.
That's right.
That's the whole idea. Because once you disappear off the internet for even just a day or two, if you're consistent, like my schedule's supposed to be,
right,
you don't exist anymore. You got to start over, basically.
Right. Yeah. Once you're out of eye shot or earshot, people forget. Like it's that instant gratification mentality we were talking about earlier. Once you're not seen anymore, you're gone.
Yep. Yeah, no, and it's difficult that's probably the hardest part about content marketing or attraction marketing, whatever you want to call it, right? Is that you need to have that consistency to be able to make it work. Whatever your consistency is, you got to stick with that plan. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Consistency, like you were saying before, consistency is key because like you said, this is a long form thing. This is a long-term thing. So it's not, sometimes traction doesn't catch for a year or two. And you have to continue to do it over and over, even when it's not getting the traction. So, it's knowing what you want, knowing why you're doing it, and understanding that it's a long game. Understanding that it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be quick. Right. So, those are really, really, really important things for podcasting. And I think for life in general. I mean, relationships, a job, all of those things, you don't go into them assuming that it's going to be quick and that it's going to be easy for the most part. Everything that's worth doing is, you're going to get some struggles, you're going to have some ups and downs, and that's what makes the journey great. That's what makes important things and things that we care about. That's what makes us care about them, is because we had to fight to have them and to keep them.
Yes, and that's such a parallel, like podcast, business, life, all that. It really is. I view all this stuff as the same thing. My life is my business, and all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a shift that I had to make for myself to make this all make sense for me. That might not
Right.
be for everybody, right? But it's worked out very well for me since I've started thinking that way, right?
Right. Yeah.
And when you look at everything as a long game, right?
Mm-hmm.
We only get one board to play on, right?
Mhm.
Whenever we're calling our life, whatever that lifespan is, we get one board to play on. There are some specific rules you have to work within. Other than that, you're pretty much on your own.
Right.
And if you look at it as one game to get to whatever goal you're going to, as not a bunch of different pieces. There's not work, there's not hobbies, there's not life. It's all, for me anyway, it's all one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I've been able to look at this whole journey as everything is a step towards that, right?
Right.
And I think that you can get real granular on that and look at just podcast or just whatever too, right? So that's awesome that you think that way and that you're teaching your clients the same thing.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important to realize regardless of what you're doing because, life is hard. Things in life are hard. Things aren't easy. Life isn't easy. There's struggles, there's obstacles, there's hardships. And when we can understand that it's okay to go through those hardships, it's okay to go through those problems, and as long as we decide to come out the other side and continue and push forward, I think the struggles and the obstacles are worth going through. Some are harder than others, some take longer to go through, but I think dealing with them is better than trying to avoid them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, if you what is this? If you live hard or work through hard decisions today to make an easy life, or live an easy life to have hard decisions later.
Right. Yeah. The hardships are going to come, whether they come now or whether they come later, they're going to come. Like life isn't going to be sunshine and rainbows all the time. And
Right.
I think a lot of people in business too, I think a lot of people think that they're going to get into a business and it's going to be easy. And, they hear about, this person started their business and they made, 6 figures in 6 months. And they think, oh, well, I can do the same. And the reality is, no, you can't. There's probably a lot more than went on behind the scenes for that person to make those 6 figures in 6 months. Yeah, they could have made it in 6 months, but they've probably been trying to do it for 20 years.
Right. Yeah. 20-year overnight success. Right.
Right. And I think a lot of people, because of that instant gratification mentality, assume that because someone goes viral or someone has success so quickly, they don't think about all the work that went behind the scenes. And so
Right.
they get discouraged when they're not hitting those goals in 6 months. And it's like, well, like my coach says, it's like, she says, you're a baby business. The people who have children, would you expect a 6-month-old to get up and run? No, you wouldn't, because they're
Right.
6 months old. But we expect our businesses at the beginning to just take off and make all the money for us. When it's a baby, it doesn't, you're still learning, you're still growing.
Yeah.
And so, that's one thing that has been on my mind a lot, is the people who are like, oh, I'm an overnight success. And no, you're not. You've been working at it. Like, talk about how hard you've worked, because that part of the journey is important.
Yep. Yeah. When you look at any success story, quote unquote, or whatever, it's always the same. Like Warren Buffett's a great example of this, right? Started out with like dirt poor, nothing, right? And now he's what he is, right?
Right.
And everyone looks at him like, oh, what's Warren Buffett doing today? Well, how about we look at what he did 40 years ago?
Right. Yep.
And then-
Absolutely.
And then a more recent example, Mr. Beast. Like,
Yeah. My
wow,
son loves him.
man. Well, who doesn't? The guy's amazing with what he's done. No matter I'm sorry, I'm gonna go a little tangent about Mr. Beach for a second. I really admire
It's
him.
fine. He's great.
He is. He's fantastic. He is perfect entertainment for any age group.
Hmm.
Like, he nailed that. Business wise, he is extremely business savvy and ruthless when you look at, like, not like a bad way, but just like, I'm going to succeed in this, right?
Right.
He doesn't take anything from anybody. He just does what he does.
Hmm.
But he's another one of those too. You know, he's a guy that studied. He started making content, figured out as he went, right? And he studied and did nothing but study and make YouTube videos for more than a year to figure out what is the perfect thumbnail, the perfect title,
Right.
different variations and gradients on colors, all kind of crazy stuff, right? He still does this to this day. He's got a team now, and then suddenly started taking off, right? But that took him, what, 2 or 3 years to start seeing a big increase in stuff?
Right. Yeah.
On a consistent basis, anyways. And now look at the guy, right?
Right.
You know, and you talk about the business owner that, you know, 6 figures in 6 months after 20 years and all this kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
I am a firm believer that you or I can look at, let's say, a lawn care business that just takes off overnight, right? You and I can go do that. 6 figures, 6 months, that can be done.
Right.
However, do we have the discipline, the passion, and the heart and the mind to make that happen?
Right.
Right? To do what they did, even in the hard times, and make it work, right?
Right. And be consistent.
Yes.
And consistently do those 6 figures that you know, supposedly took you 6 months to do. Like, can you consistently do that every single month, you know, day in, day out, do the things that require you to get to that point?
Yeah. Can you recognize when to ask for help, why you're asking for help?
Right.
All those things. Yeah.
Right.
And that, you know, that gets into a lot of the personal development stuff and all this about, like, you
Right.
know, that self-realization you talked about earlier. It's like, you know, who are you really, and what are you trying to accomplish, right?
Right. Right.
Which is a big topic that I'm thankful for has become a lot more common in formats like this and that kind of stuff, is like, become a better person, not just a better business person.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
And whatever capacity that needs to be done. So,
right.
That sounds like you talk to your clients about a lot of that stuff too. So
yeah. Because I mean, I think a lot of places, like I'm not going to say a lot of coaches, but a lot of people talk out there about there should be a separation between who you are as a person and who you are as a business owner. And to me, there really isn't a difference. You're the same person, whether you're at home with your family or whether you're owning a business. Like, you should be the same person. You shouldn't have to have that duality just because you're a business owner. If the same values, you know, the same values should be for you as a business owner, as a person, you know, the same morals, the same thoughts, the same, you know, all of those things should be the same. Do you act? No, I don't want to say act, but do you make decisions differently? Sure. You know, the decisions that you make as a business owner might be different than the decisions you make as a parent or as a non-business owner. Absolutely, because now it's not only you, but it's your business as well. But on the flip side, as a parent, you make decisions that a business owner wouldn't make because you're putting your children first. Yeah. So just depends on which hat you're wearing, but the underlying values and morals should stay the same. It's still who you are.
Yep. Yeah, and if you have to, if there is a dichotomy between those two things in people, I've noticed anyways that one of those two things, they are not doing as well in or outright failing miserably at one of those two things if they're treated as different, right?
Right. Yeah. If you feel like there has to be a separation, it's because one of the two is not broken, but one of the two isn't where you want it to be, or it's not you're just not, you don't feel like it's a focus for you, and you're trying to cover with the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I can unfortunately speak from experience on that. You know, I think probably every human being can from experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But with me specifically, like my business journey to get to this point, I've had I can't even count how many businesses that I've started up and just destroyed immediately or failed miserably or whatever. Not,
But you
not,
learned.
I sure did, which is
Yeah.
why when I say the word fail, I mean like the business itself didn't make it, right?
Yeah, but you learned with it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I didn't fail. I got something out of it, right?
Right, absolutely.
Well, I paid attention to what I was learning. That's their part of it. Too.
Right.
When you were talking earlier about like that overnight success thing, right? Now, back in like 2016, 2017 or so, I got into drop shipping like I think everyone did on the internet back then.
Yeah.
And I was really, really upset when I made no money in it the first 30 days. Like, what did I do wrong? Well, looking back on it now, after learning a lot of lessons about a lot of things, I only waited 30 days. That's what I did wrong.
Right. Yeah.
So that long play, and even if you can catch lightning in the bottle and you really find that that's something that someone is just like begging for in the market, right? Which is going to be a great product, great service, that kind of thing. But even if you do find that, you still have to treat it as a long-term thing.
Right.
Because doing one big sale it's going to change your life and how you look at things, whatever, but it's not going to be the life-changing thing, right?
No, because can you repeat that?
Exactly. So
because you can make one big sale, and let's say you make $10,000 in one sale. Eventually that $10,000 is going to be gone. So can you do that again?
yeah,
Can you be consistent and continue doing that over and over again?
right. Yeah, and that's where, so you said 30% of podcasts disappear after 10 episodes, or
Yeah.
like in the business world in general, like what does the SBA tell us? Something like 80% of all businesses will fail in the first 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Good reason.
I'm pretty sure by now that stats probably after COVID, that's probably even higher.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah, 'cause there's a whole bunch of stuff like, oh, everyone can run a business now, right? But then
Right. Yeah.
everyone also found out that not everyone can. So,
Right. Because people are thinking, again, they're thinking about running a business as this easy way out, like this easy way of doing things. And running a business is not easy. It's probably one of the hardest things you can do. And especially online businesses, because you're alone. It's just you. Until
yes.
you build a team together, it's just you. So, you have to have the right mindset. You have to have the right thoughts and the right push to keep being consistent, to continue doing the same things over and over again, especially when you're not seeing any results. Like you said, you did that drop shipping for 30 days and you were like, this sucks, nothing's happening. But if you wanted to keep doing the drop shipping, you would have, all right, I got to do another 30 days. All right, I got to do another 30 days.
Yeah.
All right, and just you have to keep going and be consistent, because so many things online take time.
Yes.
Business ownership takes time. It's
Yes,
not
it
a
does.
quick thing. Yeah, it's not a quick thing. So I think that instant gratification is the one thing that's really been tested with online businesses and business owners in general, is, teaching people that, yeah, you can run a business. Yeah, you can have an online business and it's pretty easy to start, but are you willing to do what a Buffett did, or what tons of what Elon Musk does? Like, are you willing to do what they did to get to where they are?
Yep. And then continue it after they get there too.
Right, exactly, because they can drop off at any time.
Yeah, you've got to treat all of this, no matter how successful anyone is. And I've heard on podcasts, many very successful people have this same sentiment. Just because you got where your goal was when you started does not mean you stop. Matter of fact,
Right.
You need to double down and do it even more.
Right, because it can stop at any time.
Yeah.
Like if it was hard for you to get there, if it took a long time for you to get to your goal, deal with it. Like, think about it like it can be you can lose it quicker than how long it took you to get it. So if it took you 20 years to reach your goal, treat it as like you could lose it in 5.
Yeah. Or
All that
tomorrow.
all that work you put in, 20 years worth of work, it can be gone in a second.
Yep. Yeah, and it can be things that you mess up, somebody on your team messes up bad enough. It can be somebody you have no contact with at all. Like a stroke of
Absolutely.
a pen on a law somewhere can mess up your whole world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to be prepared for that. And you have to be, and I think once you go through all the hardships, it's a little bit easier once, things fall apart to pick yourself back up and do it over again. But sometimes you're like, I don't want to do that again.
Right.
And then you have to pivot and figure things out. But, everything, failure or success, everything's a lesson. And if you're willing to look at both of those things in that way, there's really no failure, there's really no success, so long as you're learning something from the experience, good or bad.
Yeah. Yep. No, I cannot fail. I can only learn.
That's right. Yeah,
That's
it's funny that that's like a business mindset, because we've taught our son that. We tell him, because he's very competitive. And so losing in hockey games, he would get super frustrated, and we'd be like, no, you didn't lose. What did you learn that you need to do better next time? And so we've already honed him in on that mindset. It's like, you win or you learn. What can we do differently next time? What can we do better next time? And
right.
that's, my coach says that. She goes, just go out there and do it. It's better done than perfect. And and even if it doesn't work out the first time you do it, you've done it. You can look at what you did. You can look at what worked, what didn't work. And then the next time you do it, you have that information so you can do it a little bit differently. The second time, maybe it doesn't work, but you have even more information. And then the third time you do it, and the fourth time, and eventually you'll get to where you want to be. You'll get to the end result. But sitting around waiting for it to happen isn't going to make it happen.
Yeah. No one's coming to save us. Only we can do that
No,
first.
that's right. Yep, that's right.
Well, that's awesome. That I really appreciate what you're doing for people.
Thank you.
And I feel like we align a lot on how we view all this, which, in the circles that we pay attention to, and maybe the circles that we're in, it seems like a common thought, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, we look at the world as a whole, it's not as common as we probably would like it to be, right? Or
Right.
where it needs to be. So
Right.
hopefully in that idea, if we can only help one person and this reaches one person's ears and it changes their mind on it, then that's, to me, is a success in this journey.
Right. Right. And that's why conversations like this are good, because, like you said, you may find, someone might find your podcast, hear this conversation, and, their minds are changed, or their minds are open to the possibility of what can be by, collaborations and working together, and, being more open-minded to things. So yeah, I think that's great.
Definitely. So as we kind of wind down towards the end of this here, one of the things, first, I do want to say thank you for all your time so far. Like, this has been an awesome conversation, and I do
Thank you.
think it's
Yeah.
one of the things that I've been asking guests, and I flat out stole this from our podcast, so anyone call me on it, go for it. Okay. But I think it's a really good question. It's an important question, because it kind of gives you a little bit more insight into who someone is, right?
Yeah.
So what are 3 books that you would say have really changed the course of your life? And you cannot say any holy book; those are too easy.
Right. Yeah, those are easy. Okay. So, one of them is a series, and I'll leave that one for the end. So, I read a book called The Servant.
Okay.
I don't remember the author because I read it like over 20 years ago. But that was a really good book that taught me a lot about a servant heart, and serving others. And the other book is Think and Grow Rich.
Of course.
That is a great book. I read that, I think, twice. And then the other one, and this is going to be kind of funny, but the Harry Potter series.
Okay.
that, and I say that because that helped me to learn the magic of creativity. The beauty that comes from just creating entire worlds, like just a completely immersive experience just, came just from someone's mind.
Yeah.
And it allows me to think how much more am I capable of just with that spark of creativity.
Yeah, well, I can understand. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think about like J.K. Rowling or any prolific author like that, right? Stephen King is a great example of this.
Yeah, I love Stephen King.
The universe that has sprung from that man's mind, right? Like, and you look at that about like how creative and how creative we can be as human beings, right?
Right. Yeah.
We
Our
can
potential
allow
for
yourself to be.
Yeah. I mean, look at Star Wars.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, so yeah, I can appreciate that. At first, I was kind of like Harry Potter, but no, what you're saying makes sense. It does. So I like that. I never personally got into the Harry Potter thing, but I really do like rich fantasy worlds like that and fiction.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate it. It just I kind of got into. I was around as it came out, right? And I was very much more into like super hardcore sci-fi at the time. So I'm like, Harry Potter's for nerds,
Yeah.
But I'm
It is,
books.
and I'm proud of it. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was sitting there reading Star Trek novels. So, nerds.
Oh, okay. So you're a Trekkie, not a Star Wars?
No, I'm definitely a Star Wars kid.
Okay.
After reading the Star Trek novels, I was like, this kind of sucks. Star Wars is way better. So.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could go Lord of the Rings too. That's another.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another fantastic set of books that, those have stood the test of time.
Oh yeah, and they always will. There's so many great metaphors and anecdotes and everything in those books.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Yeah, so that's really cool. I'll definitely look into The Servant and like who wrote that and something to look into. Yeah. I as well have read Think and Grow Rich. I don't even know how many times anymore. I've actually got a copy of my shelf right over here.
I'm sure we have one somewhere in our house.
Yeah, and they're so easy to come by.
Yeah, and they're small. Like you don't have to. It doesn't take like another author that wrote a lot of really good books. I think his name is Og Mandino. Like I think he wrote a book called The Giver. I think is the name of it. But like all those quick read books that you get a quick point. They're not like 800 pages. You're good. You get your point, and it's great.
Like modern day Aesop stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cliff notes. Give me Cliff notes. Give me quick.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I miss Cliff notes. Yeah.
If I can digest it on Audible or Spotify or wherever between home and work.
Yeah.
Me, right.
That's true. Yeah. I do love listening to a good book.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, no, I appreciate that. So I think it's a good question to kind of get an idea about if you know the book, you can kind of get a feel for how someone got where they are today. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't know the book,
I just ran the gamut with my books there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate that. And then one of the last questions I ask people always is what's something that you're super excited about that's coming up in your life, whether that's like some new offer with your business or a wedding or some charity or anything.
Let me see. What do we have coming up? Probably just the holidays.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big Christmas person. I love Christmas. I love the holidays. So just, I don't have any vacation left. It all went away. I used it all for spring break. But just, being able to have family together, being able to spend time, starting a new year, new beginnings, new experiences. My 2024 is all about new. So just getting to that point where, everything is new. That's what I'm most excited about. Seeing where things are going, seeing, what I can accomplish in the new year, meeting new people, having new experiences. That's what I'm most excited about. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. And then, so where can people find you, like on social media or website or anything like that?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I have a website. So my TikTok is Aeoliana_pod_strategy. In Instagram, I am Aeoliana.Elliott. On Facebook, I am Aeoliana de Jesus Elliott. My website is topshelfvirtualservices.com. And all my socials are on there. I think I might need to add TikTok in there because I just recently got on there a few months ago. I was avoiding it like the plague, and I
still am. I probably should get my life together.
yeah, I finally dove in. My coach dared me to do it, and so I did it on a dare.
I was told to pick 2 platforms and stick with it, so I've been sticking with like Facebook, Instagram Reels, and YouTube and Shorts.
Yeah.
I was told that I should wait till I have a team to deal with more, but I'm kind of feeling like I got a lot of time to make that work, so I'm leaning towards doing it. But
well, it's funny because since you're on YouTube Shorts, TikTok's basically the same thing.
Right. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I can just put this there. It's the same thing. So,
right. Yeah, exactly. So you already have the content for, you got the YouTube Shorts. You just transfer it over to TikTok.
Right.
Yeah. There you go. Repurposing.
Yeah. So when do you start your own podcast, Aeoliana?
So I did a private podcast on burnout, and I've recorded some. I just haven't quite jumped the gun to actually do it, but maybe we'll shoot for 2025 getting one out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted.
Oh, please do, for sure. I'm sure I'll probably have you back at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. This was great.
As we grow and see what's new in 2024 and kind of talk about that a little bit too. So
yeah, that's great. Maybe you can come to Florida and get warm.
I'm hoping to. We now have direct flights from where I live to Orlando.
Oh, Orlando's fun. There's a lot to do in Orlando.
That's only a 4.5 hour drive from where I want to be in Georgia, so it's even better.
Oh, Georgia's beautiful. Yeah, Orlando is about 30-45 minutes from where we are.
Okay.
So it's yeah. And
easy to pop in and say hi then.
Yeah, absolutely. Always welcome. Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
No, this has been awesome. I really do appreciate your time with us here today. I'm hoping I know someone listening will get some great lessons out of all this. So
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Of course. And like I said, we'll definitely have you back at some point. I enjoyed talking to you, and this is going to be really good moving forward. So
yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So I'm going to call that good for the podcast then for this week. Everyone, of course, get out there, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Spread the word. Hopefully we can get out and help as many people as we possibly can. Until next time, everyone, keep crushing it.
Bye.